Hello, everyone, and welcome to Advanced Functions in Excel. So my name is Rafael Tirado, and you can see me over here. Very happy. So we're going to do Advanced Functions in Excel today. Let me just turn the camera off, and let's get started now. Hello, Tony. Hello, everyone. All right, so let's start with the objective for today. Learning objectives for today. So in today's lesson, participant will learn to understand the concept of a function in Excel, learn how to use the VLOOKUP function, learn how to use the if function, and some variations of the if function. So I know it's the advanced functions in Excel, but I like to at least review the concept of what a function is. So make sure that we are at the same level. And besides the function that you see right there on the screen, we may be able to touch on some additional functions. So we have 1 hour, and let's make very good use of our time. So I see 67, that's a good number, 67 participants. So let's get started with the first objective. So understanding the concept of a function in Excel. So just so everybody's clear with what a function is or what a function does in Excel, right? So a function is just I always describe it as a built-in formula that is, basically save your time. Okay, so we have all used the sum function, of course, right? And then you know that the sum function, if it is the case that you want to add these numbers over here, instead of taking the long route and add the numbers one by one, then you can use the sum function that lets you select the range of all the numbers that you want to add, and then boom, you got your answer right there. Okay, so sum, of course, is one of the functions in Excel. How many functions we have in Excel? It's over 450 functions that we have available to us, and Microsoft just keep adding new functions. So as a matter of fact, we may be having a workshop next quarter on the latest function that has been released by Microsoft. And the good thing about having Excel 365, we do have it at the NTA right now, is that every time you don't have to have a new version installed on your computer, you don't have to upgrade, but rather the new functions get added to the Office or the Excel 365 that we're using. All right. So that's basically, the idea with a function. It's just a formula that lets you get a result in a much faster way. Now, there are some functions like you see over here, the today function. In case you're not familiar with that, today function returns today's date, okay? And there is another similar function called the now function. So the now function returns not only the date, but the time when you run the function. Now, the I like to say something about the structure of a function. How is it that you use a function, right? So of course, the first thing you have to know is you have to know the name of the function. So here on the illustration, we have this function we're going to be using in a few minutes. It's called the network days. So it basically counts how many days from a starting day to an ending day, how many working days, how many work days. So that doesn't count Saturdays. It doesn't count Sundays, right? So when you want to use a function like this, of course, first thing you have to know is you have to know the name of the function, right? So every time you're going to use a function, you start with the equal sign, okay? So that probably all of you know. So you start with the equal sign, and then you type the name of the function. If you want to also, you can select from a list, and I'm going to show you the two options, whether you type in the function name or you select it from, there is a menu where you can make a function selection, right? So whether you select it or you type it, next thing you have to do is you have to provide the arguments of the function. So what are the values that that particular function needs, right? So if it is the network days, then of course you have to specify the starting date and also the ending date. Okay, so the way we're going to use it is, let's say we have I have a training project that begins on this date and ends on this date right here. So I want the function to count the network days in between. Now, you notice that this function over here has another argument called holidays. Okay, I already told you that the network days doesn't count Saturdays and Sundays, but what about holidays? What if you have a holidays during the from Monday to Friday, right? So you may want to build a list with those holidays so the function can look at the holidays. But because holidays is an optional argument over here, you see that Excel will put those brackets right there for the holiday. Okay, so it is you may want to supply your list of holidays or you leave it blank, and that's what makes this argument over here uh, an optional argument. Okay, so let's get to the Excel file that we're going to use today. So let me just bring it back here. And by the way, I put the file on Transit University. So after we're finished with the class, of course, the recording is going to be, the recording takes a few days to, be edited and placed on the website. So what I've been doing now is that while that's happening, I'll give you a copy of the unedited version of the video so you can watch it. But eventually the video will be placed at the site that I'm also going to give you a link to, right? So this is the training library that you're probably familiar with. So I'm going to put the link over here for the video. I already uploaded the data file that we're going to be using today. Okay, so if it is the case, you got two monitors and you want to follow along, let me just copy on the chat the URL. So you can go there, and if you want, you can grab a copy right here on data. You can grab a copy of the file that I'm going to be using. Okay. Once again, I would say you only do this if you have two monitors and you can watch me on one screen and then you can practice on the other one. Otherwise, yes, wait for the video. Then if you want to practice, if you want to follow along, then you can download the file and practice. Okay. I also want to say that you may have noticed that the Transit University website kind of like have a new look right now. So when you go and you look for the training library, it's a little bit different now because you have to go into different categories and section in order to find the video uh, that for the class. So just to make it easier for you, I'm going to provide you with the old link where I think it will be kind of like easy for you to just go and look at the video from there. Okay. So all right, so let me minimize over here and go back to Excel. So once again, network days is the first function we're going to use today. All right, so once again, let me give you the scenario over here. I'm going to be working on this training project. So phase number 1, okay, you can see over here is going to run from May 26 to May 29. So I want the network days to count how many working days in between. All right. So again, because I know the name of the function, then I just go there and type it in. Remember, first thing you have to do is you have to press the equal sign. Okay. So after I press the equal sign, then I go ahead and type network days, and then you see a list over here of different functions that begin with the letters NE. So once I get down to the function that I'm going to use, you got two choices over there. You can do a double click with the mouse, or once the function is highlighted as it is right now, you can also press the tab key on your keyboard. So I like to use tab because it's, again, it, I just saved the reaching for the mouse and doing the double click. But at the end of the day, they both do the same. They put the name of the function and they open these parentheses that's also required, right? So after the function name, you gotta open the parentheses. So now again, you have to supply the arguments for the function. You also notice that the first argument, it's always gonna be highlighted. Oh, I'm sorry, it's gonna be bolded, right? So what is required for me now is to provide the start date. Okay, so how do I do that? I just reach for the mouse and then go over to the start date on cell B11. and I'm going to click, and I just did my selection of the start date. Now, the second argument over here is the end date. Now, the way you switch from one argument to another, then you can see that there is a comma separator over here. All right. So that's the key that I'm going to press on the keyboard. Right. So I'm going to press the comma right here. And now you see that the end date, the next argument lights up and it gets bolded. And that's what the function is expecting me to provide right now. So for the end date, I'm going to go to the end date, which is May 29. Okay, so from the 26th to the 29th, it looks like I have 4 days over there to work on my project. But when I close over here the parentheses and hit the enter key, oh, I may get surprised with the result over here, right? Because instead of 4 days, it just gave me 2. Okay, but it just so happened, and of course I picked these days purposely, because if I show you the calendar over here, May 26th happens to be a Friday. Okay, so the 27th and the 28 are not counted. So they're only counting the 26 and the 29 as working days. All right. So that's why I get 2 instead of 4. But basically that's what the network days does. It just counts the working days in between 2 dates. All right. So I wanted to start with this function. Once again, just to remember, the use of a function, how is it that you go about using a function, how do you provide the arguments for the function. And I picked one function over here that has a particular argument that is not mandatory, is optional. Okay, so what about the holidays over here? So the holidays happen that if you have some holidays that you don't want to be counted on your formula over here, so what you do is you create a list, like I started creating over here. Okay, when is Memorial Day, when is Independence Day, Labor Day, and so on. So I'm going to go right here. Okay, and I actually took the time to look for the holiday for this year. So Memorial Day happens to be on May 29. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this range over here. And what I did previously, I changed the color. I made it white so you guys didn't see it, but let me just switch back to black now. So you see that I have my list of holidays right here. Okay, now I'm going to go back here and change the formula. So I'm going to go back, since I have the formula already, I can go up to the formula bar, right? I can backspace, all right? And then you see how the last argument is highlighted, okay? So what I need to do now is, again, use the comma so I can specify the holidays, right? So now for the holidays list, I'm going to go to the range where I have the holidays, which is the range G11 to G16, okay? And I'm going to close the parentheses, right? And now when I hit the enter key, I'm going to go down to only 1 day, 1 working day for my phase 1 of the training project. Why? Because Memorial Day this year is on May 29, and May 29 was the end date over here. So I went from thinking that I have 4 days to really knowing that I have only 1 working day between those 2. Okay. Oh, that's a good question, Yomar. Yeah, no, the holiday is not a database. It's not an Excel database. You have to build it because, these holidays, they change from year to year. So you have to create the list and then you have to refer to it. Yep. I guess at some point, Microsoft may come up with some sort of like a function or database that, where you can retrieve the holidays. I know right now in Google Sheets, the application that competes with Microsoft, there is a WebEx function where you can go and extract table from websites and there's a class that I teach on Google Sheets, and one of the exercises we do there is we look for a site. There are different sites out there that contains the holiday for the year. So with Google, you can just type the website and the table number, and then they will extract all these dates into the spreadsheet. So hopefully Excel will come up with that easy way to get the holidays. But for now, we have to type the holidays manually. Yep. Mm-hmm. All right, so moving forward over here, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy this formula down. By the way, can I copy this formula down to the remaining two phases of the training program? Let me ask you that question. You can tell me. Can I copy the formula as it is? And some of you are saying no, and some of you are saying yes. So tell me why yes, why not? Oh, wow, we're like 50-50 now. Okay. And all right, to be fair, technically, so Ronald was saying the holidays will move. The formula will be altered. Okay, neat. All right, so I like that. I like that trend there. Need the absolute reference. Okay. All right, so let me go here and do it. So technically, yes, I mean I could drag it down, right? But I may not get the answer that I'm expecting over here because you see, and somebody mentioned the term absolute value, right? So my holidays are from G11 to G16. I'm just highlighting them right here, and I refer to them within the formula. So I gotta make sure that before I copy this formula down, I tell Excel that I don't want the reference from G11 to G16 to change, right? Yeah, I gotta freeze them. I gotta find a way to make them permanent, okay? Because you know that if you copy this formula down, if you copy down one row, then all the reference to the row are gonna change. So B11 will become B12, C11 will become C12, and that's okay because those will be the new starting and ending date, right? So I do want the B11 and C11 to change. I don't want G11 and G16 to change. So watch me over here. If I do it without freezing them, as Yumar was saying, right? I still get a number here. So I get 8 days from May 26th to July 6th, right? But then you notice that the cell reference now went from G11 to G12 and from G16 to G17, right? So that's leaving out Memorial Day. And if I keep doing that to the next cell, then it will leave out the Independence Day and so on. Yes, Adam. So I'm going to make them absolute. And how do I make them absolute? All I need to do is just go over to the formula, right? And there are different ways to do that. There I can put this $sign in between the cell reference, right? But rather than me typing the $sign, Jan is saying you can hit the F4 key, the function key on the keyboard, and yes, the function key will add the $sign. So I have to do it for G11 and I have to do it for G16 as well. Okay, so even though the final days is correct, yes. But I want to make sure that the reference for the holidays doesn't change, right? So, and I do that with this concept of the absolute reference. So some of you were already familiar with that. That's good. So I'm going to move down here and yeah, it will still have 8 because Independence was still covered within that range. But I want to make sure that when I'm copying a formula and I have these values over here that I don't want to change, then I use the concept of absolute reference. All right. So far, so good. Let me move over to another function. So this wasn't on the objective, but it's a function that we always like to teach it here when we do the Excel classes. And you may not be familiar with the function, but the idea over here is that you appreciate the power of these functions in Excel, okay? So this is the so-called payment function, Okay, it's the PMT function. And basically what it does, it lets you calculate payments. Could be monthly payments, could be yearly payments, right? But payments that you're going to make on an amount that you borrow from the bank, and then you're going to pay back at a fixed interest rate. Okay, for a fixed amount of payments, right? So how do you calculate those payments? You can use the payment function. Okay, the function could also be used to calculate how much money you're going to make on an investment that have the fixed return, percentage of return with a fixed number of payments. So either one of the two, but over here, we're going to use it to calculate payments. So let's say that you want to take 50,000, you want to take a $50,000 loan. Could be from the bank, could be from your 401k, from your pension, and they tell you that they're gonna charge you 4% yearly interest rate. Okay, and you want to pay back in 5 years. So since you're going to be making monthly payments, so that means 60 payments, right? So if you go online and look for the formula that allows you to make these calculations, this is a formula as you see it right there. Okay, so basically you have to take the principal, you have to multiply by the rate, then you got to add 1 to the rate, you have to elevate it to the n power, where n is the number of payments. Whatever you get from there, you have to divide it by this other calculation over here. So it's a lengthy process because you have too many calculations, right? So I did take the time to do the calculation right here on cell A5. So if you look at my formula over there, okay, so it's basically doing what you see right here. Okay, it's adding these numbers elevated to the n, multiplied by r by p, and then dividing by, the addition of this. So here is the division sign. Look at all the apprentices that I have to use, and so on. Now, to make your life easier and your calculation easier, what Excel does is it creates a function, right? And within the function, Excel is going to ask you for these arguments, okay? What is your rate? What is the number of payments? And what is the amount that you're going to calculate the payment on? Where do I find the Excel file? I put the link on the chat at the beginning. Let me just go there quickly. I put it again. Is that function file? You see right there. Again, don't want everybody to be doing it this way, but if you have two monitors, I said, yeah, why not just watch me on one monitor and try on the other one. But so you have the file there if you wanted to follow along. All right. All right. So Adam, thank you for the answer too. All right. So going back here, what we're going to do now is we're going to use the efficiency of Excel to make our life easier, right? So we go like this, equals, and then we use PMT. Now, I'm telling you that there is a function PMT, right? If you want to see the list of different functions available to you, what you could do is you can go right there on the formula bar, and then you can click on the insert function, right? Because I already started typing the name of a function. When you go there, then you're just gonna get the oh, sorry, I hadn't opened the parentheses, so that's why I didn't get straight to the PMT function, right? So you notice if I had the parentheses open, I go straight to the function that I want to use, right? If I don't have the parentheses, or if I don't have any function type in yet, and I go to the function icon, then I'm going to get a list of, initially I get the most recently used functions. Okay, so of course the sum and the average and if are going to be there. If I look at the list of all functions, then you're going to see each and every function you have in Excel. Okay. Okay. So if it is the case that you want to use the PMT, right? So let's click go over here. And now you find the PMT function. What I like about using this window here is that it gives me a kind of like information about what the function does, right? So it says right there, calculate the payment for a loan based on constant payments and constant interest rate, right? So how do I use this window here? When I click OK, right? So now I got the arguments of the function. So instead of having the arguments on a linear way separated by the comma, then I have it on a list over here, right? And all I have to do is just provide the value. So what is the rate? I can type it in, or if I have it on my Excel file as I have it here, then I just go there and click, right? So I click on cell A2 because that's what I have the 4%. Now, keep in mind that we're going to calculate monthly interest. Okay, so what we're going to do is over here we're going to divide by 12. Okay, and why do we want to divide by 12? Because we're going to calculate monthly payments. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So I have to do that with the rate. Now MPR, okay, and MPR right here, so it tells you is the total number of payment for the loan. So what is the total number of payment? Again, I say 60. You can also click right here where you have the 60, right? And then you have the PV being the present value or the principal for this exercise. So since I'm borrowing 50,000, I go to A1 where I have the 50,000. And this, when you're using this window, the required arguments are going to be bolded. The optional ones are not going to be bolded, so you can leave this blank. What I also like about using the window is that before I click OK, I can see right here the number that the result that I'm going to get if I use this function. So if I do click OK now, I know that 920 and 82 cents is going to be my monthly payment. So you see, it's exactly what I had calculated before. Okay, but you see how much easier this calculation is, because all you need to do is just provide the arguments to the function. All right, so let me pause over there and see if there is any questions. Oh, Rafael. Okay. All right, Rafael, I can send you information, and that there was a question there about breaking up the information on a date. So if you have a date, yeah, it's very simple. it's just again, and let me share this with the audience, because Rafael has, if I read it correctly, you have a date on one cell. If I have a column with the day, but I need the next column just with the month, and another column with the year. Yeah. So if you have a date on one cell, and then you want to break it into, on another cell you just want the date, in another you want the year. There is a function for that. So I'll send you that info, Rafa. All right. So far so good. Questions on the payment? That's, once again, just to illustrate, how these functions just make your life easier. Okay, and let me just tell you, we're going to see this, but if there is a particular function that you're looking for, right, for whichever result you need to calculate, and you don't find it, just so you know, you can also create your own functions. Okay, and this is what we refer to as a custom function. But let's follow along with the functions that we had for today. All right. So now here's another function. Some of you may be familiar, and I picked this one because I want to illustrate how Excel keeps updating, the list of functions. So this is the so-called V lookup, vertical lookup. Okay. So here's the idea. I got a table, and some of you may have fall into this situation. You have a table over here of employees, where you have the ID. I'm assuming the BSE ID. For the employee, the name and the email address. So this is a very extensive list, right? About 45,000 employees over here, right? Now, out of those 45,000, they come to you, your boss comes to you and ask you to retrieve the name and the email address of 5 of them. Okay, so first one, 576619 and the other BSE IDs. So because it's only 5, yeah, I guess you could just go over to the column B and do a find. And if you type the BSE ID 576619, hit the enter key. Oops, I guess I did something wrong there. I'm looking for 576619. Let me find the next entry over here. We couldn't find what you're looking for. Click options and oh, silly me. I was looking for the BSC ID on the name column. How stupid, right? So let's go to column A and then do it on column A. And here comes Anthony Brown, right? So found the BSC ID, found the name. I can copy and paste the name and the email address, right? I guess you could do it for 5, but if they come to you with 200, then you want a more efficient way to do this process, right? So that's where the VLOOKUP function can come to help. So the way it goes is, because I'm giving you already the name of the function, so you can start typing it, right? Once you got the function, you got the description over here of what it does. And then again, if I press the tab key, right, I got the argument over here for the function. So basically, what this function is going to do is you're going to give them what's called the lookup value, right? So you're going to say, go and look for this BSE ID. So I'm going to click on the BSE ID, right? And I just provided the lookup value. I'm going to put a comma. And now you have to tell Excel where Excel is going to look for this value, right? So that's what they call the table array. So the table array will be the list, right, where you have all this information. Like I said, is 42,000, right? So my way to do the selection over here, rather than using the mouse, I hold the shift key down and then I start going down like this. But then again, I don't want to go line by line. So at some point, what I do is I press the end key, END, and what happens when I press the END key is, let me see if I can move this out of the way, because the END key have, you guys still see me, right? I just moved a zoom window out of the way. But what I want you to see is that by pressing the end key, I just went into end mode. Okay. So what happens when I on end mode is if I'm holding the shift key down to make a selection, right? And I'm on the end mode. If I use the down arrow key, as I'm going to do now, you see how I can quickly went all the way down to the end of my selection, because Excel is going to move all the way down until it finds an empty row. Okay, so that was a quick way to do my selection over here. Okay, I have to hold the shift key to do the selection. Yes. So, but now that I have my selection here, right? That's the table array. I know that the table array is always going to be the same. It's always going to run from A2 to C45,000, right? So what do I do here? What I did before with the other formula, with the other function, right? I press the F4 key, and I can press it now. So the table will always go from A2 to C45,000. So that's the table array, right? What happens now, I use a comma, right? And now the function needs the column index number. So what is a column index number? In our table, that refers to the column that contains the information that I want the function to retrieve. So since I'm looking for names, and it so happens that the name is on column number 1, column number 2, of course, we're going to count columns number 1 beginning with the BSC ID. So BSC ID will be column number 1, the name column number 2, the email address column number 3. Then since I want to retrieve the name, then the column index over here will be column number 2. Okay. And there is another argument over here that even though it's optional, I want to use it now. So I'm going to put another comma. And now for the last option, I got for the last argument, I got 2 options over here. Do I want to find an approximate match to this BSC ID, or I want Excel to find the exact BSC ID. So of course, I'm going to go with exact match. Okay. And that will add the word false right here. I close the parentheses now, hit the enter key, and Excel goes find the BSC ID and then retrieve the name from column number 2. So watch over here as I see the name Anthony Brown right there. Okay. Can I copy this formula down? Is it safe to do it? Just give me a yes or no. And now it's going to be full yes, right? Because I make sure that the SL reference over here was an absolute reference. Okay. But let me show you the way that I like to do these things. So whenever I'm going to use a formula that is going to refer to a range that is not going to change, instead of using the absolute reference, what I do is I make a selection. Again, Yomar, I'm holding the shift key now to do the selection, right? I'm pressing the end, I'm going down, and once I have the table, right, all the information in the table selected, what I do is I come right here to this window called the name box, right? So if I go over to the name box, I just simply come up with a name to name the selected range. So since these are employees, let me call these employees. Sorry, employees. So I hit the enter key, and now Excel knows that whenever I use the word employees on a formula, I'm referring to this range. Okay, so I can rewrite my formula over here, and it will be easier now if I do VLOOKUP, and then again, lookup value being the BSC ID, comma, what is the table array? So now instead of making a selection, I can just type the name range that I created. So once I see employees, I can press the tab key, and you see how when I selected employees, then the employees range gets automatically selected. So that's a much easier way to deal with these ranges, especially when it's a long one. So column number 2 for the column index and exact match. And once I do that, I can close and I retrieve Anthony Brown. And this is a formula that I can copy down. And you see how easy I can do. Click enter to set the name. Yeah, once once I make my selection, I go there and type in the name I want to use, and then I hit enter to set the name. Okay. If you made a mistake and you pick the wrong range, eventually you can go over to the formulas tab, Yomar, and right here you have the so-called name manager. So when you go over to name manager, you're going to see a list of all the names that you already, all the ranges that you already named. If you wanted to make a change, you can just pick the range, and then right here, you can go and retype the reference for that particular range. Yep. All right. So now that I make things easier over here, the email address will be just a breeze, because that will be just lookup, looking for the BSC ID, comma, looking on the employees table. And then now, instead of column number 2, I will use column number 3 because I'm looking for the email address, right? And that will be an exact match again. All right, hit the enter key, and I get the email address. So the VLOOKUP is a very functional and very important formula. The only downside with the VLOOKUP is that the lookup value, right? The lookup value over here, what Excel is going to look for, usually the ID always have to be in column number 1. Okay. So once again, on the table where you're gonna send Excel to do your to look for the value, then the lookup value always have to be on column number 1. Okay. In other words, I couldn't just, based on the email address, I couldn't say equal VLOOKUP, go and look for this email address on the employees table. Why? Because the email address is not the first column. Okay, so that will create a confusion with that function. And because of that, then Excel have to develop a new function. So there's a new function that came on I think it came on 2019, and that's things a little bit different. Click to enter. One didn't work. Can you do one more time? I got the wrong emails. All right. So once again, Yomar, as long as you have, as long as you selected all the names all the way down, you went over here and then you type, employees, hit the end. Oh, you got it now. Okay, beautiful. All right. All right. So let's move on to the oh, interesting. I guess Omar is telling me here. Oh, it's telling everyone, I guess. Yeah, you saw that. Forgot false. Yeah. If you leave it as true over here, then Excel will look for an ID that is close to the ID that you're looking for. It's not a good idea for this exercise. There are some other instances where you want to go with the approximate instead of the exact. All right. All right. So let me move on to X lookup. Okay, so what's up with the X lookup? So this is the situation that I was just describing, right? So now your boss comes to you and say, hey, I got the emails of these employees. Okay, so what I want you to do now is find the BSC ID. Okay, so once again, you're gonna find the BSC ID for Anthony, right? Now, again, if you go with VLOOKUP, you're gonna be in trouble here because if you're looking for the email address on this table, assuming that I make the entire selection, the email is not on column number 1. Okay, so in the past, what we used to do here is, well, at least in my case, I used to swap the order of the columns, but then you went into changing the information, especially if it was read-only information, then it was a mess, right? So now they came out with the X lookup function. So X, you still have to say go and look for a particular ID, but now you're going to select a column where Excel will do the search, and another column where Excel will retrieve the values based on the match. Okay, so let me just show you over here how the X lookup works. And by the way, the X lookup only works if you have Excel 365. Anybody still running 20 Office 2016, you won't be able to use the X lookup. Okay. The only thing is if you receive a file that somebody created on 365 and they send it to you, you're using 2016 or 2019, you're able to see the file, you're able to see the formula, and then you can edit the formula, but you cannot just start building it on those versions of Excel. All right. So since we have 365, let me just go and type X lookup, and here come the different arguments. So what is the lookup value? The email address that I want to find. What is the lookup array? So the lookup array is the column where Excel is going to find the email address. So again, I could select this all the way down, but I already took the time to create a range with all these names over here. So I call that email. So I'm going to use email. You see how the entire list over here of emails highlights all the way down. Okay, so that will be again the lookup array. So I'm going to hit the comma, and now the return array will be for this particular case, because you want to find the BSC IDs, then it will be all the BSC IDs on this collection. I already named that as BSC ID. So you see how easy? Lookup, and then you select the lookup array, the return array, and that's basically it. You have additional arguments over here. Like if they don't find the email address, you may want to put a message over there saying not found, but that's optional. You can even leave it blank. All right. And then if you're going to leave it blank, you still have to use a comma though. So you put one comma and then another one to jump to the exact match. Okay. Now over here, they went with 2 additional options. Again, this will be useful when you're dealing with numbers. With this situation, we're just going to go with the exact match. All right. And then I'm going to close, hit the enter key, and here comes the BSC ID for Anthony Brown. All right. And then again, because I'm using range names over here, okay, I don't have to bother with the absolute reference. All I need to do is just copy it down. And there you have the X lookup. All right. So once again, it's sort of like, well, it came out in 2019, but still a recent function. If you guys were, using the VLOOKUP, X Lookup, so now you have another option there. Let me move on to if, and if is a function that most of you have probably already used. Just want to add a little variation to it. So the if function is used to compare, right? So like in this data over here, let's say you are checking on the attendance or the check-in time for employees, right? This group of employees have to report at 10 a.m. and then you have the check-in time for different employees. So you can tell most of them are coming on time. This guy here came late for 2 minutes. This guy just came on time. So you want to create a list over here that tells you if the employee was on time or was late, right? So an easy way to do is just with the if function. So you start with the if function, again, open parentheses, right? And then the first argument over here, you have to do a comparison. What is it that you want to compare? Well, you want Excel to check if the check-in time is less than or equal to the start time, okay? If that happens, right, this is the comparison, so now comes a comma, right? So if this happens, if the value is true, what do you want Excel to do? So what I want Excel to do here is just to give me a message saying that the employee was on time, okay? And then I put another comma. And then after that comma, what do you want Excel to do if this didn't happen, if this is not true, if the check-in time is not before 10 a.m.? So that means the employee was late, right? So then I want to put over here late. All right. And then I'm going to close, hit the enter key. And then for the first guy, because he came before 10, then he was on time. But when I copy this down, this guy over here should show as late, right? Because the comparison over here is not true. So, but that's the, again, the if function. You may be able to, you may have used it before, okay? Take it as a review, but what we're going to do now is we're going to use other function, the account and the sum, but now we're going to use it with the if. I got a question here. Please explain again how you activate the end mode to reach the end of an array. Dante? Yes, so if I'm right here on cell A2, right, and I'm holding the shift key down, and again, I'm just holding the shift key down to make a selection. If you want to make a selection, right, being on A2, if I press the end key and I use a down arrow, it will come all the way to the word totals, meaning just one line before, the last line that has some data in it, right? If I'm right here on 23, Dante, and I press the end, once again, you have to press the end key. So it's that key that is above the arrow keys usually. Let me see if I have the on-screen keyboard. And hopefully the on-screen keyboard is this key right here, the end, okay? So that's the key that you have to press on your keyboard to go into end mode, all right? So let me know if you get that. All right, so with the if, some variations of the if is now you want to count how many employees came on time, right? So you know that equals count is a function that you can use to do a count, right? So if you do, you got to be careful with the with count too, right? If you do equal count and you just select text, right, you're going to get 0 because the count function doesn't count text, right? So, but if I do count on the time, then it should give me the 19 entries that I have right there. Okay, so just keep that in mind too. Another variation of count, if you want to count text and not numbers, instead of count, use count A. So count A will now give me 19 instead of 0. Okay, how do I use the if? So I just simply go, well, let me do it on the next one over here. Okay. Oh, I delete the on time. So let me stick with this one. So if I want to count how many came on time, I can do equal count if, Okay. So when I do count if, look at the arguments over here. Yep, your mark count if. So the range, where I want to do my count, and the criteria. So what is the criteria? That they are on time. When it comes to criteria, you have to enter criteria like this. You have to type it in inside quotes. Okay, it's not case sensitive, so I can type time lowercase. I notice that I put uppercase for T, but as long as you put the criteria inside quotes, let me close, then I got to count 19. Okay, how do I count the ones who are late? Well, let me go back to equals count if. Yes, Yomar, I should have frozen that range. Yeah, should have given that. I should have given a name to that range. Absolutely right, right. So for the but I didn't. So for the count if, you know what? Yes, let's do it. Right. Let's call this my time. I don't want to use the word time because that's also a function in Excel. So let's call it my time, right? And then I start referring to it as my time. So how do I count the employees late? So you can say, okay, do count if, and then my time. And now criteria will be late, right? So you can do late inside quotes, number 1, and that will give you 4. Give you another one. What if you do count if on my time, but now instead of late, you type not on time, right? So you see how I type not equal to with the less than and the greater than. So not equal to on time. Boom, I got 4. Okay. I can also refer to if I do count if, and then again, the range my time. When it comes to criteria, if the word late is already in a cell in Excel, then you can just point to the cell and then refer to that cell. You got the same number. All right. So far so good. Let me take you to a more extreme function over here. Okay. So remember I say custom functions. You can create your own functions. Take a look at the function over here. I got 2 functions on this file. One is called my name, and the other one is called mpay. So my name, if I just type my name, you see the function come up over here, right? Any function you use, remember you have to open, you have to close parentheses, right? The only thing is that because I created this function, I couldn't add, additional help for the argument, but look what this function does. It returns my name, okay? And look at this other one, monthly pay, mpay. If I use mpay, it doesn't show, again, it doesn't show the arguments over here, but if I go over to the function list, okay, so I got the arguments over here. So the function pay I created, I was teaching a Visual Basic class once, and somebody asked a question about functions. How do you create them? So I came out with this idea, right? So this monthly payment, let's say you want to calculate your monthly payment when you retire, right? So you're going to put over here. So that's why the argument is, okay, what is the earning average of, your 3 years with the highest payment? What was your average? So let's say you have an average of $90,000. So you put $90,000 first. How many years you work? Say you work 21 years, okay? Which tier are you? Tier 4, tier 6? Okay, so I'm tier 4, right? So let's say that I work for 21 years. My average salary on those 3 highest years is 90,000, and I'm on tier 4. So by putting these numbers over here, look at the answer that is going to come up, 3150. So if I click OK, boom, that's the number that I get in here, right? If I'm, let me just try here with, let's say if I'm tier 6, right? So again, 95,000 average. I work for 9 years, but now I tell the function that I'm tier 6. When I hit the enter key, I don't know if they fixed this, but employees on tier 6, they have to work 10 years to be vested, right? So the function is telling me, no, you only have 9 years, so you are a non-vested employee, right? So that's what I was describing again as a custom function. It's a function that you have to create. How do you create it? So for those of you who were on my macro class the other day, remember I used the developer tab over here, and I said with developer, you can go to Visual Basic. Once you go into Visual Basic, then you have the option over here to start writing all this code, okay? But basically what you're doing when you create a function is you name the function, right? So I name it over here mpay. I name it over here my name. And then you notice that my name doesn't require an argument. So there's nothing right here inside these parentheses. But the second one, I was asking for the earning average, the year's work, and the tier number, right? So I basically get this information from the user, and then I start, playing with those values, right? So I throw these if statements over here. Are you tier 4? Then if you are over 20 years, I'm doing your calculation at 2%. If you're under, I'm doing it at 167. And, in reality, I mean, I'm really not trying to use this for you to calculate your retirement payment, but just to illustrate how is it that, with a function, you ask information from the users, and then you go and manipulate these numbers, and then you can throw a result, right? This function lives with the file. Okay, so if you get a copy of it, you can go behind the scenes, Visual Basic. You can look at the structure of the function over here. It's right here under the module section. Okay, let me end up with just saying that on this file also, I put a large collection over here of different I mean, when I created this, all the functions in Excel were included on this tab. If they have grown, maybe you won't find the X lookup over here. Maybe yes, maybe not, but is an extensive summary of all the functions. So what I wanted to say is I want to end up with these two functions over here. Okay, the today and the now function that we were talking about before, just to emphasize that every time you're using a function, don't forget the equal sign, right? You watch me there typing today with the open and the closing of the parentheses. Nothing's going to happen if I forget the equal sign. And even if you do the equal sign, don't forget the parentheses, right? Because now I got the function right, but if I hit the enter key, then I get a name error over here. So again, equals the name of the function, open and close parentheses, so you can get today's day, equals now, open and close parentheses, so you get the day and the time. Okay, and last but not least, I promise this is the last one, two of my favorite functions over here. I don't know if you guys ever use the column function, but what the column function does, if you just go and type equals column, okay, because I'm on column A, when I hit the enter key, it gives me the index for that particular column. So column A is on is column number 1, right? If I do it right here on column M equals column, then it's just going to return the index number for column M. So if you count from A all the way to M, there are 13 rows, 13 columns in between, right? Looks like a kind of like a silly function there for you to use, but I remember one day that I was building a formula in which, in which the I needed to use a number 4 within the formula, and I knew the formula was going to be copied over to, yes, it also does the hidden columns, Dante. So the formula on the next column have to go up to 5, and then the next one to 6, 7, and so on, right? So in order for me to build this formula so I could copy down, then instead of 4, I use a reference to column A, B, C, D, which is column number 4, right? So I went as equals column D, and I have to use a cell reference. So like D1, that gave me 4, and I knew that when I copy to the right, then it will go to 5, 6, 7, and so on. Okay, so that's a very interesting function there. Uh, Again, the argument is optional. So if I just do equal column, it'll tell me the reference for the column that I'm in. If I do equal column Z1, then it will give me 26 because column Z happens to be on 26. And the same is true for the rows, right? If I do equals row and I do A1, then of course it's going to give me 1 because cell A1 is on row number 1. Okay, but the time is up. Okay, I want you to go when you get a chance on one of the cells over here. I left a formula in there where I use the row function to do a calculation. So I guess I deleted it. I'll put it back on the original file. But that's all we have for today. Thank you. Do I get attendance today? Yes. The attendance is generated automatically. So let me just go back to my PowerPoint presentation because I just want to make sure that I cover all the topics over here. References. So I found a very good PDF file with this 101 Excel functions you should know. Excel by categories. You also have the videos of previous workshops. So I'm going to send all this information. I'm going to follow up with an email. At the same time, of course, we're always asking you for the feedback survey. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the survey in the chat. And if you have a chance, please, you can complete this survey for us before you leave. But don't worry, I'm going to follow up with you. I'm going to send you an email. Okay. And whether you do it now or whether you want to do this later, we'll appreciate it. All right. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. All right. Enjoy the rest of the day. All right. See you next time. Adios. Sayonara. Au revoir.